Hello dear children, welcome back to chemistry class. In our previous class, we have learned about mixtures and its classification. In today's class, we are going to have a comparative study of elements, compounds and mixtures. But before we go into that, just like how we have studied the characteristics of elements and compounds, we will now have a look at the characteristics of mixtures. In order to study the characteristics of mixture, we have taken here an example of iron-sulfur mixture, which is a combination of two elements, that is iron powder and sulfur powder. As you see here in the picture, in order to form this mixture of iron and sulfur, the components, that is iron and sulfur, are mixed together in any proportion. Do you remember the case of compound? There we have studied that in order to form the compound water, hydrogen and oxygen are mixed in fixed proportions, which means only if two atoms of hydrogen combine with one atom of oxygen, it gives the compound water. But here we see that the components, that is iron and sulfur, are present in varying proportion. Therefore, we can say that the components that are present in a mixture are present in varying proportion. Now, the next characteristic is that mixtures do not have a definite set of properties. When we have studied about compounds, we learned that the properties of compounds formed are completely different from the properties of its individual constituents. Like in the case of water, which is a compound, water has got properties which are completely different from the properties of its individual constituents, that is hydrogen and oxygen. But here in case of mixture, we observe that iron and sulfur, which are the two components that are present in this mixture, will retain their original property even after they are mixed together. That is why iron, when it reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid, it produces hydrogen gas, which is a property of iron. While sulfur, it dissolves with carbon disulfide, which means even after these two components are mixed together, their individual properties have not changed. Therefore, we say that mixtures do not have a definite set of properties. The next characteristic is that components in a mixture can be separated by physical methods. We have already learned this. From a combination of a mixture of iron and sulfur, iron particles can be separated by using a magnet, that is, by a physical method. This is because iron particles are attracted to magnet. So we say that the components that are present in a mixture can be separated by physical methods. This is because there is no chemical bond that is formed between the constituents of a mixture, and that is why we are able to separate it using physical methods. With an understanding of what we have studied till now, let's have a comparative study of elements, compounds and mixtures. We are going to do this comparative study on the basis of four important points, that is term, existence, properties and separation. Elements are pure substances which are made up of one kind of atoms. Example, iron, sulfur or any element that is present in the periodic table. Compounds are also pure substances that are made up of two or more different elements. Example, iron sulfide, water, etc. Mixtures are impure substances which are made up of two or more elements or compounds. Example, iron sulfur mixture. Now, elements are called as pure substances. This is because they are made up of one kind of atoms or same kind of atoms. Compounds are also called as pure substances because they are made up of similar kind of particles. Like in the case of water, which is a compound, it is made up of only water molecules. And in the case of iron sulfide compound, it is made up of only iron sulfide molecules. Therefore, we say that compounds are also pure substances. Now, in case of mixtures, they are impure substances. This is because they are made up of different kinds of particles. Like in the case of orange juice, we have seen that it is made up of different particles. That is, it has got particles of orange pulp, sugar, water, etc. Therefore, we call that as impure substance. Now, in terms of existence, we see that in case of elements, the atoms are present on their own, while in case of compounds, the components that are present in definite or fixed proportion. And in case of mixtures, the components are present in any proportion. We have already seen that in case of water, only if two atoms of hydrogen combine with one atom of oxygen, it forms the compound water. So we say that they are present in fixed proportion. While in case of mixtures, we have already seen for the mixture of iron and sulfur, the components that is iron and sulfur are present in any proportion. Now, with respect to properties, we know that elements have got a definite set of properties, which means the properties of iron are different from the properties of that of sulfur. And in case of compounds also, we know that it has got definite set of properties. We have already learned that the properties of compounds are completely different from the properties of its individual constituents, that is elements. But in case of mixtures, they do not have a definite set of properties. In terms of separation, chemical methods and physical methods can be used to separate an element. In case of compounds, the elements can be separated only by chemical methods. This is because the elements that are present in a compound are chemically combined, and therefore we need to use chemical methods to separate those elements. While in case of mixtures, the components that are present in a mixture can be separated by any of the physical methods, just like how we saw in the case of iron-sulfur mixture. Iron, which is separated from the mixture of iron and sulfur with the help of a magnet, which is a physical method. Examples of elements are iron, copper, sulfur, etc. Compounds, iron sulfide, water, copper oxide, etc. And examples of mixtures, as we have already seen, iron sulfur mixture, copper silver mixture, etc.